Good evening, and welcome back to day number 44 of the Bible in 365. Today we are taking a look at Numbers chapter 7, beginning in verse 60, and exploring all the way to Numbers chapter 10, ending in verse 10. So yesterday, our discussion concluded in Numbers 7, wherein we discovered that the leaders of Israel were called to bring their gifts before the Lord as offering. Each man's offering was no different from the next. We examined the first 8 men and the gifts they brought. Today we read about an additional 4 men. We read about Abidin, Ahiezer, Pagiel, and Ahira, and they also brought gifts before the Lord. By the end of chapter 7, you probably had the gifts memorized. They all brought plates, bowls, dishes, bulls, rams, lambs, goats for offerings. And they all weighed the same in terms of the plates, the silver, the gold, so on and so forth. The exact same. So it was almost like a carbon copy for each person. Now, moving forward to Numbers chapter 8. This chapter begins with the Lord giving Moses instructions on where and how the lamp should be set up. Next, the chapter shifts to its primary focus, the dedication and consecration of the Levites. Here, verses 5 through 26 note that the Levites were supposed to be set apart for the Lord. They were to be purified and made ceremonially clean. They were to be clean shaven and purified so that they could be ready to do the work of the Lord. The Levites were essentially to take the place of the firstborn sons of Israel. So men ages 25 to 50 took part in the work within the tent of meeting. They had regular duties that they needed to perform, and they were responsible for doing the Lord's work. In Numbers chapter 9, it details the Passover. The Israelites were supposed to celebrate Passover at twilight on the 14th day of the first month, essentially like January 14th. Those who were ceremonially unclean were not participating in the Passover. So Moses sought the Lord and was given special instructions for this group of people with regards to how they could participate in the Passover celebration. Now, in the second half of chapter 9, it talks about the Day of Tabernacle and the cloud that rested above it, and how this cloud looked as though it was fire by night. As long as the cloud covered the tabernacle, the Israelites would remain at camp. When the cloud lifted, they would continue on their journey. Now, it didn't matter if the cloud rested for 2 days, a month, or even a year. They always had to follow the guiding of the cloud. Moving forward to Numbers chapter 10, verses 1 through 10. These verses speak about silver trumpets. Now, Moses was called to make 2 silver trumpets, and these were used to call together the community. There were special blasts and patterns to inform the tribes of whether they were supposed to gather together or to set out. Now, the sons of Aaron, the priests, were the ones who were supposed to blow on these trumpets, and these trumpets would be used when going into battle, at festivals, at feasts, to celebrate the Lord's provision and what he had brought them through. It is here at the end of verse 10 within chapter 10 that we end our reading for tonight. I hope that you guys will join me tomorrow for day number 45 of the Bible in 365 as we take a look at Numbers chapter 10, beginning in verse 11 and exploring all the way to Numbers chapter 13, ending in verse 16. As always, folks, God bless.